Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men issue 367, cover dated April 1999. The cover is by Leinil Francis Yu, inked by Jimmy Palmiotti. I like Palmiotti's inks over Yu's pencils, which sometimes are a little bit scratchy. I think it works well here in this particular combination. The cover has a caption as well, Unholy Trinity. This is the penultimate chapter of the Magneto War. And we have Magneto there, and it looks like he's struggling with his powers, and we've got Astra and Joseph looming over him in the background. It's not the most inspiring, it's not the most memorable of compositions, but it's reasonably well drawn. Let's open this one up to the first page, and this picks up from the end of issue 66 of Adjectiveless X-Men by Alan Davis. So there was a nuclear strike on Magneto's Arctic citadel and the machine he's operating to take over the electromagnetic sphere of planet Earth. And the acolytes find themselves in a spot of bother because Magneto's concentration has been diverted by the nuclear strike. And so their pilot there, Kath, is doing what he can to survive. And Neophyte asks, but what about the X-Men, Kath? They were on the surface. And Kath replies, the electromagnetic pulse has made our scanners useless. I can only say, boy, let's turn the page. By the way, I do like the fact that we're getting a little call out for all their code names here, including this character, this new one, Vindaloo. Quite an interesting choice of name there, somewhat comic, at least to me. We'll learn what his powers are in the course of this issue as well. Turn the page, we get a splash, and there are the X-Men on the surface. Were they killed from the shockwave of the nuclear blast? Highly unlikely, right? So the title of this chapter, the penultimate chapter of the Magneto War, is Disturbing Behavior. The creator credits are plot Alan Davis, script Fabian Nicieza, pencils Leinil Francis Yu, inks by Livesay and Vines, that's Dexter Vines, digital colors by Liquid, and digital letters by Richard Starkings and Comicraft. 22 pages of story and art in this issue, and then we're into a conversation among the acolytes regarding the X-Men. And Neophyte there says our holy mission was to detain the X-Men, not kill them. So there's an argument, and this guy here, what is his name? Mellencamp, he says, hey, how are we not following orders here? We didn't cause the explosion, so if the X-Men croaked, it ain't our fault. And Scanner says, but if they did survive, we are beholden to. And then she pauses. And then we get a close-up on her face, and she says, make sure the acolytes finish the job. So it looks like she wants to go down to the surface, and some of the acolytes are on board with that. Neophyte skeptical. Kath there has his nostrils flaring. He's listening to them, and maybe he has his own thoughts. We'll find out he does. Subsequently, by the way, I do want to observe that it seems to me that Leinil Francis Yu is influenced by Travis Charest, and in particular for this Mellencamp character, he's looking at Charest's rendering of, now am I going to be able to remember the name of the alien race in Wildcats, Jim Lee's Wildcats, what on earth are they called again? It is just eluding me. If I remember it in the course of making this review, I'll note the name of the alien race. What are they called again? Can't remember. Never mind. Turn the page. Let's continue with this particular review. So 75 miles to the north of Magneto's polar tower, ground zero still reverberates with the hurricane force of electromagnetic fury. So there's Magneto. He's struggling to get a grip on things. And then it feels like something slicing through the confusion of trying to get a hold of the electromagnetic waves and pulses and so on and so forth. No, it must be his imagination due to the strain. But what is this that's making its way to his citadel? Let's turn the page. And of course, it's Astra and her creation, Joseph. That was revealed. We got the true origin of Joseph in Adjectiveless X-Men 66. And she's a pretty terrible person. And she treats Joseph like he's a thing, like he's a machine. And she says, let my Brummagem kill him slowly. She's talking about Magneto. That would serve him right for how Magnus wronged me. But no, you go and get a mind of your own. There's a little typo there. Join the X-Men. Give Magnus the time he needs to reconsolidate his power base. She clicks a button here. She's a sadist when it comes to Joseph. She causes him pain. He says to her, "You're a sick woman." He's quite right about that. And she continues with her rant. "Must think that such a sick puppy completely controls every single strand of your DNA in your entire worthless body, huh?" she says to him. "Understand this, Joseph. I have as much respect for your feelings, needs, and desires as I would those of my VCR." So she's a complete psychopath. What's her plan? She wants to get Joseph to kill Magneto for her. So she tried that once before, and she's going to try it again. And what about the X-Men? Well, they weren't killed from the shockwave. Professor X there is telling them to maintain telepathic communication only. Again, I see that Travis Charest influence in the hatching and physiognomy of Professor X's face. So I'm pretty convinced that Leinil Francis Yu was studying and influenced by Charest's style from the late 90s. And how's everybody doing? Everybody's okay here. And really what Professor X tells them to do is to get ready for an acolyte attack. So let's continue. Yeah, so the acolytes, some of them anyway, emerge from their craft and start attacking the X-Men. And here we get, as I promised, an explanation of this comically named character Vindaloo's powers. His name is Vindaloo. He's a recent addition to the Acolytes with the mutant's ability to emit a gel-like liquid which he ignites into a fiery jet stream of napalm. So that's kind of interesting. And so now what we're going to get here is a fight between the X-Men and the Acolytes. And we've seen this quite a few times before. So really the only interesting part of it is the art. And that's a pretty decent anchor image there of Marrow. And she is racing towards, it looks like Frenzy here. But Wolverine grabs her and tells her to come back. We need to keep this fight going until they all clear the ship, because that's the plan here, to get the Acolytes out of the ship so that the X-Men can commandeer it and make their way to the North Pole where Magneto is. So let's continue, and there's a scene shift to the United Nations in New York City. There's debate here about what to do regarding Magneto. The military man here says, "We have to prove we don't need so-called superheroes to control this mutant threat. Since that nuclear strike seemed to slow it down, we should saturate the area with nukes." So there's disagreement here from the members of the UN. "Planetary annihilation is not the solution, General," says one of them. "Nor is capitulation to terrorist threats," says another. "I still remain open to other suggestions," says one of them. So it's a big talking shop. Nobody's in agreement. And then the scene shifts to the Polar Tower where Magneto is. And Astra makes herself known to Magneto. And he exclaims, "You, what are you doing here, Astra?" So she's fairly confident. She says, "Why, what do you think? Wouldn't letting you rule the world get in the way of what I have planned, namely me ruling the world?" Magneto shoots back at her, "This has nothing to do with ruling the world, though I doubt an honourless traitor like you could be made to understand." So she's smiling there with a cocked eyebrow. "Yeah, you've learned to manage stress. At least you're consistent. I left your silly little brotherhood of mutants because I knew your beliefs were idiotic. Let's recap." So she recaps there. She says she's seen everything all before in terms of Magneto's grand plans, but he is disgusted with her. He says, "The rights of your genetic brethren mean nothing to you." And then she retorts that he's boring her. Let's continue. And more talk between them. "I should have killed you when I had the chance," says Magneto. She hits back with, "You didn't have the guts for it then, and you don't now. Face it, I made you hot." And he replies, "Do not delude yourself, Astra." And she comes back and says, "Okay, maybe it was the other way around anyways." So it's kind of like a spurned love-hate thing. That's also part of her character in terms of her determination to kill Magneto. "Talk is cheap," she says. "Let's party." So they face off against each other. He says to her, You cannot use your teleportation powers in this chamber. The conversion of energies would rupture your jaunt rip. Who said I was going anywhere, she says. So basically her target is the machine that he is operating. She knows it is beneath him to scream in pain. So when Astra ruptured the filters on Magneto's machine, causing the collapse of the EM generator's diffusion screens and forcing Magneto's body to act as a lightning rod for all the unchecked atmospheric energy swirling around, she was hoping at most for a grunt or a groan, the piercing, tortured hell she gets in return, pulled from the very depths of Magneto's tortured soul, is well worth the outright destruction of Earth's atmosphere. So a lot of words there. Basically, she's a sadist. She enjoys hearing him and seeing him in pain. You can see that on her face there. And let's continue. And then we're back at the UN, and this character, Dr. Alda Huxley, she has been brought from Genosha by S.H.I.E.L.D. to the UN. And this guy here says, your expertise in mutant sociopolitics is regrettably no longer needed. We must follow General Winston's course of action, so that is to nuke Magneto some more. On the contrary, Mr. Secretary, she says, I'm just in time to stop you all from making an horrendous mistake. I have a solution to your problem, and all it will take is your decision to sacrifice one finger in order to save the entire body. So she's speaking figuratively there. What is the sacrifice that she means? Well, we'll find out in the ultimate chapter. Then back with the X-Men, they're fighting against the Acolytes. It's interesting, you know, Fabian Nicieza could have chosen to give us some witty banter here. Instead, he doesn't. He just says, mutants fighting mutants. The fear of every bigoted human on ugly display. Human flesh and bone, made obsolete to the point of extinction. What weapons can humans use against soldiers who are weapons unto themselves? Inside in the Acolyte's craft, Scanner and Neophyte are readying to go outside. And Kath here says, I'll remove this craft from the battlefield. So he's suspicious that maybe the X-Men want access to the craft. Down goes Scanner. Professor X is able to stop her in midair. And then what happens is that Colossus has a plan here. Why is he in his flesh and blood form rather than in his metallic form? And we're going to see, as it looks like Colossus here is lifted up by Mellencamp. Let's turn the page. And then he triggers his mutant power, transforming into living metal. And his skin turns into a sheath of organic steel, we're told. A power which until now had proven a liability in the middle of the electromagnetic storm which raged around the Arctic Circle. So basically this backlash of electromagnetic, static, electricity, whatever, takes out all the acolytes around Colossus, which gives Rogue and Shadowcat an opportunity to fly up to the acolyte craft, and then Rogue basically throws Kitty towards the craft and she phases in. By the way, this is actually more interesting than this particular story. What a cool image there by Ron Garney of the Hulk, and inked, interestingly, by Dan Green. And this is for an advertisement for a new series that was scripted by John Byrne. So John Byrne returning to the Hulk. Interesting stuff. I think what happened, though, was that Byrne did not complete the series because he quit Marvel after the decision to cancel X-Men The Hidden Years. So let's return to this story that is as tedious as any middle chapter of The Hunt for Xavier. That's my opinion by this point. So Kitty Pryde goes in. She basically scrambles the systems of the Acolyte's craft so it touches down on the snow. And the X-Men now basically get aboard the ship, and Kath is dumped out onto the snow. And we get some comical dialogue here from Fabian Nicieza where Frenzy says, I take this sort of thing happens to us often. What, getting stranded in the North Pole? First time, says Kath. A neophyte says, but losing to the X-Men happens all the time. It was inevitable, right? So inside the Polar Tower, we have this back and forth continuing between Astra and Magneto. That's a pretty decent enough anchor image of Magneto there. He says to Astra, he says, by destroying my equipment, you forced me to absorb more energy than I'm capable of wielding. But if I do not control it, the planet's atmosphere will be permanently ravaged. And though it wounds me, I will stomach it, channel it, and when best able to direct it, turn the page, I shall aim it at you. Look at this. Like, this could have all taken place on one page. But anyway, we get our big full page image at the end here of Magneto versus Joseph. Nothing any of them say is of any interest whatsoever. Looks like Astra's out cold, and now we're going to get Joseph facing off against Magneto in the final chapter of the Magneto War, Alan Davis's X-Men issue 87. Like I said, nothing any of them are saying here is of any interest whatsoever. This particular issue of Uncanny X-Men suffers from the fact that it's a middle chapter. The pieces on the board need to be moved forward into their positions for the climax. One page of letters here, you can see, I find this interesting, the type is super small in order to fit longer letters in. Unfortunately, there's nothing interesting in any of those letters. Next issue, Requiem for an X-Man. So is an X-Man going to die in that final confrontation between Joseph and Magneto? And Wolverine's out to settle the score. So what's all of that about? There you go. I do hope you enjoyed this quick review and commentary on the not very interesting Uncanny X-Men issue 367. I do think that Leinil Francis Yu is doing some good work in this issue. His art, I feel, has improved over the last couple of issues of his work on Uncanny X-Men, and that at least is something to be praised. As I said, the story itself not very interesting, and I really feel this Magneto War should have only have been 2 issues between Uncanny X-Men and Adjectiveless X-Men. Stretching it out to 4 issues, I think, was a mistake. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.